When the character of Noah was first introduced in this year's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, audiences were given a youthful, warm-hearted character that shows care and compassion for others and was easy to root for as a hero. But could it be possible that our good-hearted hero is being set up for something much darker? I'm here to discuss that possibility. If you like what I do here and want to share your support, be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. Enjoy the video. And welcome back to Ape Nation, your #1 source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and today I wanted to discuss an idea that I talked about briefly in another video recently, and that is the possibility of our new ape protagonist, Noah, from Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, following a different kind of story arc over the course of these next few movies. Yes, I am talking about the possibility of Noah going bad. So this is something that I briefly talked about in a video a few weeks ago covering the San Diego Comic-Con panel that took place for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And in that video, there was a quote from Owen Teague that I'll read again in just a minute about what he potentially wants to see and what he thinks we could see with Noah's arc over the next few movies with this new trilogy. And his quote was a little bit unexpected and kind of hinted at maybe Noah going down a bit of a darker path or a bit of a different kind of path than Caesar did. And then I want to discuss some potential possibilities about where Noah could actually go, the idea of him actually going down a darker path and what that could look like and how that could shape the future. So I wanted to discuss all that. But first I want to go over what Owen Teague had to say in this quote from him from Screen Rant. I would love to see Noah have kind of an inverse of the Caesar arc. The first movie is literally called Rise, and Caesar leads the apes into this age of freedom and takes them to the promised land, if you will. And then Noah, depending on how things go with the humans, maybe comes to believe that they actually need to know less and starts leading us towards the Dr. Zaius areas of the original film. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think that the relationships with Raka and Proximus are kind of competing philosophies of how we need to treat humans and how we need to treat those who are different from us and what we do with knowledge. I think there's a really interesting opportunity for Noah's ideas to be warped throughout the next films, but I have no idea what's going to come. So that was what Owen Teague had to say on where he thinks / wants his character to go in the future. And again, as I said, it teases the idea of Noah going on a path that leads to the Planet of the Apes that we know from the 1968 film and what his involvement in that could mean. And so just talking about the question, could Noah go dark? I think the first thing you have to look at is the discussion at the end of Kingdom with Noah and May.
Proximus was right. Humans will never give up. Not until you claim all things for yourselves.
It was ours. That silo was a human place, with human things and human ideas. It was not meant for apes.
What is for apes? Should we go back to silence?
That uncertainty between the two of them, I think that is going to be a major driving force of where things go in the next few movies. That moment between the two of them is completely left open for interpretation about what it could mean, where it could go, and I think it's very likely that they go more towards a friendship, towards a unity, but that could very easily also go in the opposite direction and completely fall apart and completely break down. So when you look at that discussion between May and Noah, where she's telling him that all these things belong to humans, and Noah confronts her going, well, what about apes? Where is our place in all of this? And that conflict, and how is that going to shape things? And you also have to look at the fact that she betrayed him. Is he going to hold on to that betrayal? And is that going to shape his view of humans going forward in any sort of way? So that conversation at the end of Kingdom, I think, is something that is going to be key in whatever direction things go for Noah in the future. I think also when you look at just how good-hearted Noah is, when you look at how compelling as a character he is, how loving as a character he is, and how likable he is from the start, I think having him go down a dark path by the end of this trilogy, go down that anti-Caesar path of becoming cold towards humans, of not empathizing with them, of wanting to put apes on top, I think it would be all the more heartbreaking when you look at how good he is at the start of these movies and how that could potentially be something that we see over the next few films, just his goodness deteriorate. We see him become more cold-hearted. We see him become more militant, maybe. maybe, in a way. So I think that's something that could be good for us as audiences to watch over the course of several films. I think that could be very effective as a story and for viewers. The one thing I will say is, depending on how it's executed, and I think if they do it, they would do it well, but depending on how it's executed, there is a risk you run of it being something that comes too far out of left field, that feels unearned, that feels unnatural. So that is something that you could risk. We've seen that done in movies in the past before, where there's a turn from a character and it's completely out of nowhere. So you don't want to run that risk. But I think if they do tell that story, if they do take Noah towards this more cold-hearted path, I think you'll start to see it, at least in the next movie. You'll see shades of that. And I mean, you already start to see potentially a shade of that, like I said, at the end of Kingdom. So we'll see how that goes. Now, as for what it could potentially look like, you probably start seeing it hinted in movie 2 heavily, strongly, and pulling back those layers, even potentially having him almost fully there by the end of the second movie, and in a place where he is fully anti-human. He has fully embraced what apes are like in the future. In the 1968 film, embraced that mindset of apes are the best, apes are dominant, humans are worthless, and become much more, like I said, militant in that way. So I think having that take place and really come into its own in the next movie, and then fully form in the third movie, is a direction they could do it. Or they could even have it completely done by the end of the second movie. You never know. Maybe with May's involvement in this whole thing, it could be something that she does that pushes Noah over the edge. Maybe the discussion that they have in the end of Kingdom, they revisit that, but it breaks down in a way that doesn't go well for either of them. Or it could involve these new human characters that we met at the end of Kingdom. It could involve the people that sent May out to begin with. It could involve all of them, and how Noah's mindset towards humans is shaped, and how Noah's mindset towards the world is shaped. And also, speaking of the world, the fact that Noah's world has just completely been opened now at this point, and he's going to be wanting to go out there and explore more and learn more, and whatever he learns, whatever he takes in, that could absolutely be part of what pushes him down that path that leads to him and his apes having no trust in humans, having full disdain for humans, similar to the apes of the 1968 film. So I think those are some of the methods of which you could see this start to take place over the next few films. And as far as where it would eventually take the franchise, I think it would set the stage actually pretty well for a future that looks very much like the 1968 movie. Again, we don't know when we're eventually going to get to that point in the timeline, if we're ever even going to get to that point in the timeline, but I think it would do a great job in setting that stage and really taking us from the point of apes and humans could potentially still coexist to no, that time is over. There's no way that that could ever happen again, or at least we're being made to feel like it could never happen again just because of how much things have progressed. Now, another risk you do run outside of just not executing it well and it being too out of left field is that you may run the risk of turning off some mainstream viewers. You may run the risk of people going, oh, this isn't this nice ape, this isn't this fun adventure that I loved in Kingdom, this is taking a much darker, sadder tone. This is going in a direction that doesn't make Noah this big, awesome, lovable hero anymore, and makes him into the ape that finally ended things between apes and humans, ended any possibility of them being able to share a world together. When you start taking a character that is very well liked in a direction like that, you run a risk like that. Again, I think if it's executed well, maybe more people wouldn't mind, but you always run a risk of turning off people by going in a direction like that. But to counter that, the Planet of the Apes franchise has always had endings that lean dark, that go in more of a downward direction. And so I think having this be the ultimate direction they go with Noah would be pretty fitting for the Planet of the Apes franchise in terms of theme and in terms of tone. I think it would, for the most part, line up very well with everything we've seen from the Planet of the Apes movies, whether it be the originals or the modern films. Tapping into more complex ideas like that would fall right in line with what we've come to know of the franchise so far. Now, as for what I personally want to see, if I'm being completely honest, I don't necessarily think this is the best direction for the franchise. I don't know if I want to see Noah go down a darker path, go down a more stern and sad, tragic path like this. But there is also the part of me that goes, it's not at all what I expect. And because it's not what I expect, I feel like it could be a little more interesting. And as much as I do love Noah being such a good-hearted person, I do like myself a really dark story when it calls for it and when it can be interesting. And I think this would be something that is interesting. Having Noah go bad, having Noah go away from this empathetic person that we know, and having him go away from the willingness to compromise and understand humans to becoming more of an ape that is almost Koba-like and becoming an ape that would fit in well with the apes of the 1968 film. I think there's something really fascinating there that you could do. I don't know if they're going to do it, but I think there is something fascinating there. Ultimately, if I had my preference, I would prefer they just keep him on the path that maybe it seems like they're going on, with him becoming more of an ape messiah-like figure, not necessarily on the level of Caesar, but more of a prominent leader in ape history, whatever that entails. But I think that's more the direction they're probably going to go, and I think that's probably the smart direction to go. But I gotta say, the more I thought about this quote from Owen Teague and the more I read some comments about it, I just got me thinking, man, it would be really cool and it'd be really ballsy if they took him in a direction like this and they had this trilogy end on a much more dour note, whatever that means. But we'll see what happens. We still have not gotten official confirmation that this next movie is even going to actually happen. I'm fairly confident it will. I think sometime in the next few months we will get an official announcement of some kind, but until then, who knows? So there's plenty of time for speculation and wondering of what's to come and where it's going to ultimately go. But I want to know what you all have to say. What do you think of my thoughts? What do you think of my theories? What do you think of the possibility of Noah taking a dark turn over these next few movies? What do you think of the possibility of him becoming more of a cold-hearted ape character who is much more in line with the traditional apes who look down on humans? Do you think we're going to ultimately go that direction with Noah, or is he going to become a pure-hearted hero that we so far have gotten to know him as? I want to know what all of you guys have to say in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.